This is Terry Lee, Vice President of Risk with Protect Group in North America. I'm joined today by James Green, co-founder of Illuminate Advisory. James, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks, Terry.
Excellent. Thanks again for joining me today. James, you work with a lot of risk professionals around the world on their key challenges, and particularly topics like employee engagement, risk and control frameworks, best practices, and the culture of risk within an organization. What are you hearing in your consulting activity?
So one of the topics that executives are asking me about when we talk about enterprise risk management is frontline engagement. It seems to be a really hot topic these days. Why do you think that is?
I think the engagement of the employee base is it's essential in any risk program, and it's just really hard. It's hard to get people in the first line of defense engaged in a risk program because they have other jobs that they're responsible for. Risk is often misunderstood by the employees who are not part of the risk management team, and those employees in the first line of defense, they're the ones that are doing the work every day and engaging and interacting and experiencing risk events directly. Like culture, engagement's just really hard. It's complicated, and it's not just what you say, it's really what and how you do it. Engaging employees really requires a multifaceted approach from the top down with clear objectives, key performance and risk indicators, and in many cases, the right kind of incentives.
And that's so important because frontline engagement to me is one of the most critical components to a strong risk management program.
Absolutely.
Just focusing on controls isn't enough. If all we needed was more controls, when the Sarbanes-Oxley Act passed in 2002, we never would have seen any corporate malfeasance for the last 20 years. So important. You know, another thing that I've been thinking about, Terry, oftentimes when I see that the front line is not engaged, it's because they're not fully aware of the organization's ERM program. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, very often we do. I had a conversation yesterday with a fair lending compliance manager who's using spreadsheets. And what really surprised me in our conversation was he said that the bank has been using another ERM software product for over 2 years. And he's never even been asked to participate in the automation of risk within the organization. It's operating in a silo, which is something that we see pretty frequently. This scenario, it's made worse by ERM software vendors that use rigid models of module-based licensing. So they can automate operational risk, but they don't automate compliance, or they don't automate internal audit. And that makes things even worse. A client buys a risk management tool, but he has to pay more to manage compliance. And these programs have to interact. So when you're breaking down these silos and you're seeking engagement, you should consider just exactly how you're going to deploy and automate these functions. How can you have a pervasive program if the company has to invest over and over again for similar capability? It really represents legs of the same table. That's
so important. People also need to be marketing their ERM programs. It's so interesting to me when a sales department creates documents for clients, they work with marketing to make sure they are branded and they look interesting. We need to do the same thing for our documents that originate from all of our risk department. They should be appealing. They should be interesting.
There's an element of gamification that really needs to happen within the world of risk management, where the first line of defense is engaged through gamification to achieve better risk health scores or to gain some kind of an incentive, not about taking risks, but about reporting and about participating in the risk program, such as completing key risk indicator metrics on a regular basis. I think it's going to take time, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, and that gamification, that frontline interaction is so important. The Institute of Internal Auditors even recently updated their 3 lines of defense to reflect that focus. And they've got the front line where they used to just be giving them various controls to now the front line provides goods and services to customers and manages risk. So, Terry, how are you seeing regulated organizations like financial institutions successfully make this shift?
Well, they're doing it in a couple of ways. First, they are having more risk-based conversations with that first line. They're explaining to them just what it means to be risk aware or to report risk or to report metrics that are often used as predictive indicators of risk. And another thing that they're doing is that they're engaging the first line of defense in conversations about the business processes that they're participating in. It's often that people do a job or perform work, and they don't realize they're operating in the context of an overall service that an organization is providing to their customers. And that level of awareness can really help in a risk factor as well.
So, Terry, you mentioned the power of tools earlier. So I want to ask you, do you think ERM software can drive engagement?
I really think it can. I see this in our client base around the world. Using spreadsheets, SharePoint, and email systems for workflow, it's not terribly effective. You can't do impact analysis. You can't really coordinate activities very well. And by using a shared platform approach like Protect ERM provides, it allows you to have a real perspective on risk in motion and to see the connectedness of risk between risks, controls, obligations, key risk indicators, and have all of that driven by a common workflow capability. It makes a significant difference over spreadsheets.
And as an ERM practitioner, I've felt that pain being part of a program that was spreadsheet driven. We felt it was a win if we just got the risk register compiled, and we never had any time or any powerful tools to allow us to do, useful analysis or insight.
I think that's a pretty common theme that we hear as well. You don't have to try to automate every capability in a risk program on day one. You want to start small. Start with your risk register, as you suggested. Work out your control libraries. Work on actions and issue management, the things that keep an organization aware of what's happening. It's all a great approach.
Terry, this has been a great conversation. If people want to connect with you or learn more about Protect, where should they reach you?
Well, the contact information is right down below of the video. You can find me on LinkedIn and at protectgroup.com. I really appreciate it, James. It's great talking to you today. How should people reach you at Illuminate Advisory, James?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn or illuminateadvisory.com.
Excellent. Great talking to you, James. I'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Terry.